story of Instagram both starts and ends with Mark Zuckerberg. Back when Facebook was only available on a select few college campuses, Mark offered a job to a guy named Kevin Systrom, who he wanted to create a photo sharing feature for Facebook's websites. Kevin Systrom was flattered, but turned the offer down after a mentor of his advised him Facebook would just be a fad that wouldn't last. Instead, Kevin went to Italy to study one of his passions, photography. He learned a lot on the course that would later play a pivotal role in creating Instagram. But when Kevin first returned from Italy, he got an internship at another tech company called Odeo, which would soon become Twitter. During his internship, Kevin became friends with Jack Dorsey, who told him Twitter was going to be huge. But Kevin didn't really see the potential and ended up leaving the company. He didn't realize it yet, but Kevin had just missed out on joining both Facebook and Twitter in their very early stages, thus meaning he'd missed 2 chances to get rich and be part of giant social media companies. But that didn't matter. Kevin was gonna build his own. He began learning a new skill, making mobile apps, and within a year, he had built an app called Bourbon, named after the whiskey he enjoyed drinking. It was quite a misleading name though, as the app had nothing to do with the drink. The app was a way for people to say where they were, or where they were planning to go, a kind of check-in app that let people post pictures of the places they went and earn virtual prizes the more times people went out. If you're thinking that sounds a little confusing, that's exactly what everyone else was thinking too. Bourbon was a bizarre concoction of different features, with an unappealing brown and red design, and a mobile website that didn't even work that well. However, after creating Bourbon, Kevin went to a party that a lot of wealthy investors were attending, and managed to convince one of them to invest $50,000 in his new app. Another investment company then heard about this and decided to put $250,000 in, which caused the original investor to pump their stake up to $250,000 as well. Suddenly, Kevin's brand new company now had $500,000 of investments. This was all happening in Silicon Valley, a place where investors were willing to throw money at new technology companies, knowing that even if just a couple of those investments worked out, they could be worth billions of dollars. Anyway, now that Kevin had money to work with, he looked for a co-founder to help him, and recruited one of Bourbon's earliest users who he knew from back at Stanford, Mike Krieger. However, even though Kevin now had a business partner and funding from investors, there was one big problem. Bourbon just wasn't that popular. They had around 100 users and were really struggling to grow. So Kevin decided to go and talk to their active users to see what they liked most about the app. It turned out, most of them didn't even care about the check-in features or the virtual prizes, but they loved the photo sharing aspect. The key question Kevin asked himself was, what problem are we solving? He then realized that even though there were other photo apps out there was no good solution for posting great photos to lots of friends all at once. He told his co-founder he thought they should pivot Bourbon and cut out all the confusing features and simply focus on just doing one thing really well: photos. His co-founder had literally just started the job that week, so was slightly nervous about the fact they were completely changing everything, especially since he'd just left his previous job to work on this business. But Kevin was adamant, and they rebranded their app to Instagram, a combination of the words instant and telegram. After building a first prototype of their photo app, Kevin was excited about its potential and showed it to his girlfriend. But she said she probably wouldn't use it, as her photos weren't as good as most of their friends. Kevin explained the reason their photos look so nice was simply that they apply a filter over the top of them, to which Kevin's girlfriend said, "Oh, you should add filters to your app then." That simple comment would end up playing a pivotal role in Instagram's success. Kevin realized that even though other filter apps already existed, all they did was edit the photos. They didn't have their own community to share those pictures, and they didn't make it easy to post those pictures on other social media platforms. Instagram would solve that problem. Kevin's photography experience came in extremely handy here, as using Photoshop, he was able to create some filters that people could add to their own photos and immediately make them look more professional. Kevin and his co-founder Mike spent just 8 frantic weeks working on this app, and then launched Instagram to the public on October 6, 2010. But even in Kevin's wildest fantasies, he couldn't have predicted what was about to happen next. With most business stories, it's normal that the initial release of a product or service is underwhelming, and the beginning is a bit of a grind to get people interested. Instagram is not one of those stories. The first day Instagram launched on the App Store, it gained 25,000 users. Within a month, it had over 1 million users. The initial success was compounded by several factors. Firstly, Instagram made it very easy for people to share their filtered photos on other social media like Facebook and Twitter, and whenever they did, it helped introduce new people to Instagram. Everyone wanted their photos to look like art, and Instagram made that easy. Secondly, Instagram's timing was perfect. The iPhone 4 had just launched with a new and improved camera. everyone was using their smartphones more, and Instagram was the best mobile-first photography app thanks to Kevin's decision to narrow their focus to just photos. And thirdly, Instagram courted designers and photographers with high follow accounts on other platforms to join Instagram early on in order to set the right artistic tone for the app. As a result of all this, Instagram went viral. However, because Kevin hadn't been prepared for Instagram to catch on this quickly, their servers kept crashing from all the new users. Kevin grew increasingly stressed as Instagram repeatedly went down. The problem got even worse when celebrities started joining the app. One of the earliest was Justin Bieber, and every time he posted, a new flood of teenage girls would join Instagram, and the servers would become overloaded. The vast number of photos now being posted presented other problems too, like how are they supposed to moderate them all, and deal with all the harassment and abuse? Instagram hit 2 million users when they only had 4 employees, which includes the founders Kevin and Mike, and they were all working together in the same small room. The growth was incredibly exciting, but it was overwhelming. And while they did eventually grow the Instagram team to 13 people by 2012, even that was an extremely low number of employees given how popular the app had become. Kevin's personal life changed completely as well. As the CEO of a rapidly growing app, he became more immersed in celebrity culture, even though he knew very little about it. There was one incident at a party where a woman was talking to him about some concerns around how safe Instagram was for younger audiences, like she said she'd seen posts encouraging eating disorders. When Kevin asked her name, she showed him her Instagram profile with millions of followers. It was Ariana Grande, and he had no idea who she was. But still, Kevin was now partying with famous people, all of which were interested in speaking to him about how they could utilize Instagram themselves. While celebrities joining did boost Instagram's popularity even further, Kevin always tried to stress that celebrities should present themselves as relatable and not just use it for marketing. Instagram's guidelines even stated, when you engage in self-promotional behavior of any kind on Instagram, it makes people who have shared that moment with you feel sad inside. The problem was, people were increasingly realizing that their audiences on Instagram could be monetized. Instagram had been intended to be a creative space focused on photography and art, but it was starting to feel more like a shop window as brands started paying people to post pictures of their products. The issue was that initially most people were not disclosing they'd been paid, so their audience thought it was a genuine product recommendation from someone they trusted, and not an ad. For those with giant followings like Kim Kardashian, it's reported she makes over $1 million for a single sponsored post. Now, what's really interesting is that in the early days, Instagram did not use algorithms to determine what went viral, because they figured people would game the system. Instead, Instagram's small team handpicked accounts and posts to promote. So the team essentially had control over who became famous or not, and could influence Instagram's culture with their own personal tastes. This also meant the Instagram team had godlike powers to make someone rich and famous. The irony was, for the first couple of years, Instagram was making no money at all themselves, as they hadn't yet developed an ad system. They were relying solely on money from investors to fund their growth. But suddenly, it looked like none of that mattered, because Twitter wanted to buy Instagram. The Twitter CEO took Kevin out for a meal to wine and dine him, and he felt it was a real possibility Twitter could acquire Instagram. Which is why Twitter were left utterly shocked at what Kevin did next. Mark Zuckerberg called Kevin and got straight to the point, saying, "I've thought about it and I want to buy your company." Zuckerberg offered $1 billion and said he felt Facebook would take Instagram to a higher level by letting them use Facebook's resources. But Mark knew exactly what Kevin really wanted and said that Instagram would remain independent from Facebook so Kevin could keep running everything himself without interference. To the shock of many people, including Instagram's employees, Kevin accepted. He knew Facebook could help Instagram grow even faster, and that they would benefit from Facebook's infrastructure and experience, like being able to use Facebook's servers and moderation tools. Plus, Kevin knew that if he didn't sell, Facebook would try to crush Instagram instead. So being on the same team, backed by Facebook's huge wealth, seemed like a win-win. The acquisition happened in 2012, and back then, nobody had ever paid $1 billion for a mobile app before, especially not an app that was only 18 months old, and had literally no business model. Instagram wasn't making any money still, so most people thought it was absurd Facebook were buying it for $1 billion. Of course, in hindsight, it was a bargain. By 2019, Instagram was generating over $24 billion in revenue per year, around 30% of Facebook's total revenue. Plus, it also meant that the top alternative to Facebook was now owned by Facebook. It was a genius move. But not everyone liked the deal. Many users didn't want Facebook having yet more user data, given their poor track record with privacy. And some thought Facebook couldn't be trusted to keep their apps completely separate like they promised. In fact, when the deal was announced, governments around the world investigated whether Facebook buying Instagram gave them a monopoly on social media. At the time, they let the acquisition go through without any issue. But years later, analysts would say that allowing the acquisition of Instagram was one of the greatest regulatory failures of the decade. Even Chris Hughes, one of the co-founders of Facebook, called for the deal to be undone, saying Mark's power is unprecedented and un-American. But for Instagram's small team of 13 people, after the acquisition it was time to celebrate, and Kevin took them for a big party in Las Vegas. But the celebrations wouldn't last that long, as it soon became clear that Instagram's employees wouldn't be getting rich themselves. They were offered jobs by Facebook to continue working on Instagram, but there was no big personal payout for them. The only people cashing in would be the co-founders Kevin and Mike. That would soon begin to cause resentment, as the Instagram team watched on as Kevin bought an expensive new car, a new Rolex watch, and started getting all kinds of packages delivered to the office. A constant reminder that he'd got insanely rich from the sale of Instagram, but the employees hadn't. However, for Kevin, several much bigger problems were just beginning. Instagram says it now has the right to sell your photos without payment or notification, and there's no way to opt out. Articles like this started popping up after the sale to Facebook, due to a change in Instagram's terms of service. Hashtag delete Instagram started trending as a result, and Instagram quickly had to backtrack and change the wording. But Instagram was facing much bigger issues than that. Because Instagram didn't require people to use their real names, it was much easier to create anonymous accounts. And thus, there was a growing amount of bullying, hateful, and even illegal content being posted, including a variety of scams. And in really extreme cases, terrorists were recruiting via Instagram and covertly organizing their content with hashtags. Countless reports also started popping up about the negative effects of Instagram on people's mental health, showing a clear correlation between Instagram usage and anxiety and depression. But this was made far worse in 2021, when the Wall Street Journal confirmed that Facebook had known for years that Instagram is harmful to many of its users, but they concealed that data from lawmakers. Leaked internal documents from inside Facebook and Instagram showed that the company had conducted their own research and found, and I quote, "Instagram is toxic to a sizable percent of its users, particularly teenage girls. And we make body image issues worse for 1 in 3 teen girls." Another internal study found 13% of British teenagers with suicidal thoughts could trace those thoughts back to Instagram use. And this was all from the company's own research. And multiple other whistleblowers have since accused Instagram of putting astronomical profits before people. As well as that, some of Instagram's earliest employees had become quite depressed about the culture that was developing on their platform. They observed as some users started photoshopping their images to look better, or using apps like Facetune and Lightroom to adjust the whiteness of their teeth or make themselves appear skinnier. This of course just raised the bar further for what was considered Instagram worthy and created yet more issues of comparison anxiety. It's the same with likes and followers. Many people don't realize how many users are members of pods, where they all like and follow each other to pump up their Instagram stats. Or how many accounts literally have fake followers and likes. I can also guarantee you that a lot of big Instagram accounts have run ads to their profiles to help promote them, which is totally fine, but it makes people feel inadequate about their own stats and popularity, when actually, they just aren't seeing what other people are doing behind the scenes. The Royal Society for Public Health named Instagram the #1 worst app for mental health for youth. Their report said that seeing friends constantly on holiday or enjoying nights out can make young people feel like they're missing out while everyone else enjoys life. Instagram had become a highlight reel for people's lives, but it wasn't just showing their real life, it was about crafting a public image. People started doing things just for the Instagram photo. For example, National Geographic wrote about how Instagram was changing travel. There was a photogenic cliff in Norway that saw around an 8,000% increase in tourism simply because it was a great spot for an Instagram photo, and people would queue up and get their picture taken there, snapping endless photos to try and get the perfect pose and angle. Then there were other incidents like a poppy field being killed by people stepping on it to take pictures for Instagram. The photo was becoming more important than the experience itself, and some were even taking dangerous photos, like hanging off the side of buildings, in order to get more daring photos that could go viral. A study found 259 deaths during attempted selfies between 2011 and 2017. There have also been several truly heartbreaking stories, like 14-year-old Molly Russell taking her own life days after viewing graphic self-harm and suicide material on Instagram. After her death, her family discovered she'd been suggested disturbing posts on Instagram about anxiety, depression, self-harm, and suicide. Her dad said he believes Instagram helped kill my daughter. Now, of course, it's important to acknowledge that Instagram is a free-to-use app. Nobody is forcing anyone to use it, and people can post and follow whoever they want. Plus, Instagram have taken steps towards addressing some of these mental health issues. For example, hiding the like count on other users' photos to try and help reduce the perceived pressure from posting and comparing like counts. But by 2018, there was one person who had had enough of Instagram, and that person was the man who created it. Most Instagram users had no idea that Facebook even owned the app. And in the first few years after the acquisition, Facebook had allowed Kevin to keep running it completely separately, as agreed. There had been a few little requests, like Facebook told Instagram to reduce the visibility of the Vine hashtag, and discourage Instagram users from displaying their Snapchat names, as Facebook didn't want to give visibility to competitors. Zuckerberg also asked Kevin to put in a good word for him with the founders of WhatsApp, because the WhatsApp founders were reluctant to sell their app to Facebook, and so Zuckerberg wanted Kevin to convince them Facebook wasn't interfering. And for the most part, that was true. But then gradually, as time went by, Facebook started getting slightly more involved in Instagram, leading to several arguments. It started when Zuckerberg wanted Instagram to send out more push notifications and email alerts to help boost engagement, but Kevin disagreed and said this would be an annoying experience for users. An even bigger disagreement then came over advertising. Zuckerberg wanted to integrate Facebook's existing ad system on Instagram. From a business perspective, this made a lot of sense. Facebook had an extremely profitable ad infrastructure they'd been using for years, where pretty much anyone in the world could buy advertising in the newsfeed, and target users based on their demographics, interests, and everything else Facebook knew about them. It would be very simple to introduce this for Instagram as well, and would instantly start making millions of dollars. But Kevin didn't like this idea at all. He thought it could hurt Instagram's brand and user experience, because the ads were mostly unvetted, and often looked tacky with clickbait wording. Kevin wanted to only work with a small number of advertisers at a time, and create campaigns that were especially made for Instagram. He wanted the ads to feel luxurious and in line with Instagram's aesthetic. And for a little while, Kevin got his way, and he would manually approve Instagram ads himself for a small number of big trusted brands. But eventually, Zuckerberg would put his foot down, and Instagram integrated Facebook's ad system, opening the floodgates for anyone to buy ads on Instagram. It was a reminder for Kevin that he might still have the title of Instagram CEO, but he certainly wasn't the boss. However, the biggest fallout of all would come when Zuckerberg started to believe Instagram was cannibalizing Facebook's growth. Now, here's the thing. Even though Facebook the company owned Instagram, Facebook the social media platform was still Mark's baby, his pride and joy, and he was starting to think that Instagram was taking too many users away from Facebook. A former Instagram employee put it best. Facebook was like the big sister that wants to dress you up for the party, but doesn't want you to be prettier than she is. Thanks to Facebook's resources, Instagram had been growing faster than ever, and in fact, via Facebook's app, they'd been helping to drive new users to Instagram. But Zuckerberg was worried Instagram was becoming too popular, that it was overshadowing what he viewed as their main app. If Instagram continued to grow like this, would it eat away at Facebook's success? Was Instagram taking too many people away from Facebook? So Zuckerberg introduced some subtle changes that annoyed Kevin, like removing the navigation link to Instagram on Facebook's app, and asking Instagram to add a link in their app to Facebook instead. Zuckerberg also told Instagram they could only grow their team by about 8% that year, far less than they needed. Kevin began speaking out and telling his employees he disagreed with Zuckerberg's decisions. Tension started to build. So Kevin took a holiday, which he then extended, and extended again. And when he finally returned, he announced he was resigning. So was his co-founder Mike. The Instagram employees thought they were joking. They couldn't imagine Instagram without its two creators. But it was true. They were both leaving. In the months after the Instagram founders quit, their app was rebranded as Instagram from Facebook. The frequency of advertising on Instagram also increased, and there are now more notifications and personalized recommendations about who to follow, along with more integration with Facebook. These are all the things Zuckerberg had been pushing for a while, but with Kevin now gone, he was free to do as he pleased, with no pushback or delays. Since then, Instagram has continued to do extremely well, especially after copying Snapchat's story feature, which offered Instagram users a way to post content without the perfectionist expectations of the main app. Whilst everyone will have differing views on whether Instagram is a good thing for society or not, what's undeniable is that it's an incredible business success story. What started out as a confusing app called Bourbon became such a hugely influential part of so many people's lives. There's a clear lesson there about listening to your users and pivoting if something's not working, rather than just blindly plowing on. Kevin's decision to rebrand and focus on just doing one thing really well was pivotal for the app's early success. However, these days Kevin doesn't use Instagram himself much anymore. It's been hundreds of weeks since his last post, meaning perhaps he's come to the same realization a lot of us have. Sometimes, the best experiences are the ones where you put the camera down, truly immerse yourself in the moment, and realize you never needed a filter after all.